Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. So glad you're with us on this Monday. I want to talk to you today about running with the horses. Man, if you grow up here in central Kentucky, we are just so spoiled by the beautiful thoroughbreds that God has blessed us with, and just such beautiful, beautiful animals. And today I want to look at Jeremiah chapter 12, verses 1 through 5. And while you're getting your Bible out, just give you a little background. We've been in a series this summer on Mondays and Tuesdays, going through the book of Jeremiah. And the name of this series is Called, Broken, and Hopeful. And God calls us all in different seasons of our life to do different things. Just always excites me to see as I reflect on the different decades in my life, my 20s, 30s, 40s, just completed my fifth decade, and my 50s, and just in different seasons of life, friends. God calls us to do different things. Broken, man, we're all broken. We all have some area of our life, and man, I think that's when our faith becomes real. So when we go through a season of brokenness, and you know, it's one of those things that you can either become bitter or better. But when you go through a broken season of life, you either draw closer to God or you buy into the lies of the enemy and you draw further away from God. And I just want to encourage you today to press into Jesus if you're in a broken season of life. And man, if you're just kind of hopeless, well, man, know that you can be hopeful today because of God's love for you. The Bible promises us that God will never leave us or forsake us. And that's the name of this series, Called, Broken, Hopeful, because it describes Jeremiah. God called him to be his spokesperson. He did this for over 50 years. He worked with 5 kings. He was on the scene being God's mouthpiece before Jesus arrived on the scene with him. And so to be that, he worked under 5 kings. He worked under Judah's last 5 kings, 627 BC to 586 BC. And I mean, he was really, God used him in a big way. In fact, Jesus was even mistaken sometimes for Jeremiah one time. Matthew records it this way. Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 and 14 says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked the disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And so obviously Jeremiah had a lot of influence, and people even thought maybe that's who Jesus was. And the time that he was there was just a time that was really, really just politically upheaval was going on. It was just a chaotic time. Morally, people just were just turning from God and just, you know, lovers of themselves and worshiping idols. And, you know, spiritually just was a really, really challenging season. And part of the reason why I wanted to do Jeremiah this summer is because it's kind of where we are in our country. And, you know, Jeremiah, you know, maybe you're like, okay, yeah, I've heard of that book. Well, it's actually the longest book in the Bible. It contains more words than any other book in the Bible. Psalms actually has more verses, but Jeremiah has more words. And so it's a really important book in the Bible, and we obviously can't get through the whole thing this summer with it being the having more words than any other book in the Bible, but we're going to do 10 weeks on it, just looking at things that we can apply in our lives, that we can learn through Jeremiah, who is a man who was called, but he was broken, and he yet was hopeful for the people back then in Judah. And so if you missed any of these programs, I hope you'll go back and take a look at these. You can go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org. It's hopeisheretoday.org. And listen to those. Are also available wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on all the major platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and also remind you we have a YouTube channel. Hope that you'll subscribe to that. That is a growing area of our ministry, and appreciate Tammy Lanham's help in this, and occasionally some programs will have some technical difficulties, and that's always my fault when that happens, and I'm learning, but most of our programs are there with video, and some may just be audio, but hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've been blessed by any of our programs, hope you'll share them with somebody else. Leave a comment. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But we've been looking at just the previous few weeks about how Jeremiah was called. He gave excuses like we all do. We've been looking at, what are the idols that we worship? Some of those are different than they were 2,500 years ago, but, an idol is something that just kind of replaces that God-sized shaped hole in all our hearts. And we also talked about that, God is very patient, but don't mistake his patience for approval. There's always a window of grace, but, it doesn't last forever. And God disciplines those he loves. Now, don't get me wrong. You're saying, well, man, it's my grace meter already in. No. I mean, God is always waiting with you with open arms, but there comes a point where God sometimes says, okay, you know what? I've tried to call you back to me, but you continue to live in sin and turn your back on me. And because I love you, I am going to discipline you. And that is a form of love. And then we talked about, are we concerned about people's, their hearts, their lives? Are we looking at them spiritually? And, are we burdened over the spiritual condition of others? Or have we just grown numb? And so if you miss any of those messages, I really hope that you'll go and check those out. The foundational verse, though, that we've been kind of hanging our hat on for this series this summer on Mondays and Tuesdays is Jeremiah chapter 29, verses 12 through 14. It says, then you will call on me and come to pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart, and I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity. There's so many things the enemy uses to capture our hearts, our minds, and our souls especially. And yet, man, my prayer this series for you, this summer for you during this series, is that, God will just bring you back from captivity and whatever it is, an area of your life that the enemy's kind of gotten a stronghold in. And just hope you know that God does want to listen to you, but he wants you to seek him, and that he promises you'll find him when you seek him with all of your heart. And so I hope that today's program and tomorrow's will really help you kind of recalibrate your heart and your soul with God and his son, Jesus. Well, hopefully you're at Jeremiah chapter 12 now. If you're driving or exercising or fixing breakfast like my man Tom Haley does as he listens to the podcast of Hope is Here, I'm going to read Jeremiah chapter 12, verses 1 through 5, as today we look at running with the horses. Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 1 says, Lord, you always give me justice when I bring a case before you. So let me bring you this complaint. Why are the wicked so prosperous? Why are evil people so happy? You have planted them, and they have taken root and prospered. Your name is on their lips, but you are far from their hearts. But as for me, Lord, you know my heart. You see me, and you test my thoughts. Drag these people away like sheep to be butchered. Set them aside to be slaughtered. How long must this land mourn? Even the grass in the fields has withered. The wild animals and the birds, they have disappeared because of the evil in the land. For the people have said, the Lord doesn't see what's ahead for us. The Lord's reply to Jeremiah was, if racing against mere men makes you tired, how will you race against the horses? If you stumble and fall on open ground, what will you do in the thickets near the Jordan? Friends, in those first 4 verses there, Jeremiah, he's like us, man. He wants justice. Let's be honest. There's times that we all just want justice, and that's where Jeremiah was at, man. Just, sharing just about why are these people that are evil so happy, and why are they being blessed? But I love that God's response to Jeremiah is not warm and fuzzy, and yet God is compassionate. He's very slow to anger, but there's times in life we need to be challenged. And I'm thankful for people, my parents, siblings, friends, coaches, that have challenged me during times of life. And I need them. And I'm calling today's message and tomorrow's Run with the Horses, because that's what he talks about there in chapter 12, verse 5. And, I think about the picture of just, horses. A friend of mine gave me this beautiful painting of these horses running at Keeneland, and just the beauty of the horses and the colors. And, there's a quote that says, "To watch a horse is to witness the beauty of nature in its most elegant form." And it's so true, man. If just you think about the beautiful horses that we have here in Central Kentucky, and love watching the Kentucky Derby, watching how they profile the horses and the backgrounds of the owners and jockeys and the breeders. It's just really just interesting to hear their stories, but you just see just how the picture, the beauty and the power of these horses, and they're muscular, they're graceful, they're swift. They were bred to run, not just trot out in a pasture. And, yet Jeremiah, he felt worn down. And he's questioned God amid all this injustice that's going on. And yet I love God's response. In verse 5, he says, "Hey, if you've raced with men on foot and they have wearied you, how will you compete with the horses?" How will you compete with the horses? And, that's one of those things, friends, that, sometimes we say, "Oh, I want to be the leader. I want to be the boss." And I remember my brother Darren, when he became a head basketball coach at Western Kentucky University. He was only 30 years old, and he was the youngest Division I head coach at the time. There were a little over 300 schools playing Division I college basketball. And he said, it's interesting. When I was an assistant coach, I thought I had all the answers. And then when I slid over 18 inches, basically one seat on the bench to the head coach, I realized now that I didn't have all the answers, and I understood why my head coach, Tom Crean at Marquette, and Kyle Macy, who Darren worked for at Morehead State, I understand now maybe why they did things maybe a little differently than I would have as an assistant, because as a head coach, I had a different perspective. And so maybe you need to know that today, that, maybe the reason God is doing something in your life, you may not understand it, or the reason somebody who's in authority over you is doing something is because you don't have all the information. You don't have all the facts. And a lot of times there's a lot of other dynamics going on that we aren't aware of. And so I've had to learn to try to do that, sometimes just to kind of take a seat back. And I still can get, as my dad would say to me, out of my box. Sometimes I would be complaining about things when I was in a leadership position in another church, and my dad would listen very patiently, but then he would smile and say, "Son, I don't think that's in your box." And that was a kind way of saying, that's none of your business, or don't worry about that. Why are you allowing the enemy to take your time, your mind, your energy, okay? And just let it go. Yeah, I don't think it's right what they did, and don't understand it, but, let that go. And for some of you today listening or watching on our YouTube channel, you need to hear that. That's a word for you, that you need to just stay in your box, or as the old saying goes, stay in your lane, okay? Run in your lane. Horses, if they bump one another, they can get disqualified, okay? Well, maybe that's what we might need to do sometimes when we get out our lane. And yet we get into that compare game, and we start comparing how people should do things because they don't do it exactly the way that we think they should do it, because, that's the perfect way, right? So I say all that to you just to say that, if you're going to run with the horses, you got to learn to be able to just get along with people. And if you're going to be in a leadership position, using that example there, just know that there's a lot more to be told, and you got to handle the things below before you can be in a leadership position. Well, unfortunately, out of time, but if you've been blessed by this program, I hope you'll share it with somebody else. I hope you'll join us again tomorrow, so we'll continue looking at Jeremiah chapter 12, verses 1 through 5, and how you can run with the horses. My name's Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.